The cruelest people are not always the ones who leave. Sometimes they are the ones who make sure everyone knows they chose someone else. Emily Carter was standing in her kitchen on a quiet Tuesday morning when the envelope arrived. Sunlight spilled across the hardwood floor of her small suburban home, and the scent of fresh coffee lingered in the air. It should have been an ordinary day. Instead, it became the day she realized some wounds could still bleed long after they were supposed to heal. The envelope rested on the counter beside her coffee mug. Thick white paper. Expensive. Elegant. The return address immediately made her stomach tighten. Ryan Mitchell. For a few seconds she simply stared at it. Her fingers remained frozen against the countertop. Ryan had not contacted her in almost 8 months. Not a text message. Not a phone call. Not even a casual email about paperwork that still connected them after the divorce. Nothing. Absolute silence. Emily had spent those months trying to rebuild herself. Trying to learn how to sleep without replaying old arguments in her head. Trying to stop wondering why the man she loved had decided she was no longer enough. Seeing his name again felt like someone opening a door she had worked desperately to close. Slowly, she picked up the envelope. Her heart was already warning her before she even opened it. Some instincts exist to protect us. This one arrived too late. Inside was a wedding invitation. Heavy cream-colored cardstock. Gold lettering. Elegant design. The kind of invitation people ordered when they wanted everyone to know how perfect their lives had become. Emily's eyes moved across the page. Ryan Mitchell and Vanessa Brooks request the honor of your presence at their wedding celebration. For a moment, the room became strangely quiet. The refrigerator hummed in the background. A car passed outside. Somewhere in the distance, a lawnmower started. Yet Emily heard almost none of it. Her attention remained fixed on those words. Ryan and Vanessa. Together. Officially. Publicly. Proudly. Vanessa Brooks. The woman whose name had slowly entered her marriage long before it destroyed it. The woman Ryan insisted was only a colleague. Only a friend. Only someone she did not need to worry about. Emily lowered herself into a chair. The invitation trembled slightly in her hands. Not because she was surprised Ryan was marrying Vanessa. Deep down, she had always suspected this day would come. What shocked her was something else entirely. He invited her. After everything. After the betrayal. After the divorce. After watching her life collapse around her. He invited her to witness his happiness. A second card slipped from the envelope and landed on the table. Emily picked it up. Handwritten. Ryan's handwriting. Her chest tightened immediately. I hope you can make it. Vanessa and I wanted the people who mattered to us present for our special day. Emily read the sentence twice. Then a third time. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. The people who mattered to us. Once upon a time, she had been the person who mattered most. She remembered standing beside Ryan when his business barely survived its first year. She remembered encouraging him after failed presentations. Supporting him during endless late nights. Believing in him when almost nobody else did. Those memories now felt like scenes from someone else's life. Emily pushed the invitation away and walked toward the window. Outside, the neighborhood looked peaceful. Children rode bicycles. Neighbors walked dogs. Life continued moving forward as if nothing had happened. Yet inside her chest, old pain stirred awake. Images returned without permission. Ryan arriving home later and later each night. Missed anniversaries. Forgotten promises. Long stretches of emotional distance. Then Vanessa. Beautiful. Charismatic. Always nearby. Always present. Emily remembered the exact moment she realized her marriage was ending. It was not during the divorce. It was not during an argument. It happened one evening when Ryan looked at his phone and smiled. A smile she had not seen directed toward her in months. That was the moment she knew. The divorce itself came quickly afterward. Ryan never admitted wrongdoing. He never apologized. Instead, he framed everything as unfortunate timing. Two people growing apart. A relationship that no longer worked. Clean explanations for a messy truth. Emily spent months blaming herself. Maybe she was not interesting enough. Maybe she was not ambitious enough. Maybe she had somehow failed without realizing it. Therapy helped. Time helped. Distance helped. But healing is not a straight line. Sometimes one envelope can drag you backward. She looked down at the invitation again. The wedding was scheduled for 6 weeks later, at one of the most expensive venues in Chicago. Hundreds of guests would attend. Business leaders, friends, former colleagues, many of the same people who once attended her wedding to Ryan. Emily imagined walking into that room, watching Ryan and Vanessa smile beneath crystal chandeliers while everyone celebrated their future. The thought made her stomach twist. Then her phone vibrated. A text message appeared. The sender's name immediately drained the color from her face. Ryan. Her heart stopped for a second as she opened the message. Only one sentence appeared on the screen. I really hope you will be there. Emily stared at those words for a long moment. Then she slowly sat back down. Because something about that message felt wrong. This was not kindness. This was not closure. This was something else entirely. And for the first time since the envelope arrived, Emily had a terrible feeling that the wedding invitation was only the beginning. The text message remained on Emily's screen long after the coffee in her mug had gone cold. I really hope you will be there. Such a simple sentence. Polite. Harmless on the surface. Yet something about it felt deeply unsettling. She knew Ryan too well. Or at least she used to. Nothing he did was accidental. Especially not now. Especially not after months of silence. Emily set her phone face down on the kitchen table and tried to continue her day. She answered emails, finished a client report, took a conference call, but her concentration kept slipping. Every few minutes her eyes drifted toward the wedding invitation still resting on the counter. It felt less like an invitation and more like a message. A reminder. Proof that Ryan had moved on while she was still collecting the pieces of a life she never expected to lose. By late afternoon, she finally called the one person who had remained by her side through everything. Her best friend Lauren. Please tell me you are not considering going, Lauren said immediately after hearing the story. Emily leaned back in her chair and stared out the office window. I am not considering it. Good. But I keep wondering why he invited me. Lauren laughed once. Not because anything was funny. Because the answer seemed obvious to her. Because he wants you to see it. Emily closed her eyes. Deep down she already suspected the same thing. That sounds cruel. Ryan became cruel a long time ago. The words settled heavily between them. Emily could not argue. Lauren had witnessed everything. The broken promises. The excuses. The gradual collapse of a marriage that Emily spent years trying to save alone. There is more, Emily admitted quietly. He sent a personal note. Of course he did. And a text message. Lauren was silent for several seconds. Then she sighed. Emily, listen to me. Happy people do not need their ex-spouses at their wedding. Emily looked toward the invitation again. The statement lingered in her thoughts long after the call ended. That evening she pulled an old storage box from the back of her closet. She had not opened it since the divorce. Inside were photographs, greeting cards, vacation souvenirs, and pieces of a life that no longer existed. For a while she simply sat on the floor sorting through memories. There was a photograph from their first apartment, another from a road trip through Colorado, a picture from their wedding day. Ryan stood beside her smiling confidently. Emily remembered believing they would grow old together. Looking at the image now felt strangely distant. Like watching two strangers who did not know what was waiting for them. Then she found something else. A folded document tucked between old photographs. Financial records. Bank statements. Papers from the final months of the marriage. Emily frowned. She barely remembered keeping them. Curious, she began reviewing the documents. At first nothing seemed unusual. Then a date caught her attention. A large payment. Several $1,000s. Made nearly a year before the divorce. She checked another statement. Then another. Similar transactions appeared repeatedly. Emily's stomach tightened. She reached for additional paperwork. More transfers. More expenses. More unexplained withdrawals. Her pulse quickened. The dates mattered. These transactions happened long before Ryan claimed their marriage began falling apart. Long before he insisted he and Vanessa were merely friends. Emily spent nearly 2 hours examining records she had forgotten existed. The deeper she looked, the more uncomfortable she became. Hotel reservations connected to business conferences Ryan supposedly attended alone. Travel expenses. Gifts. Purchases. Individually, none of them proved anything. Together, they painted a picture she could no longer ignore. Suddenly a memory surfaced. One night nearly 2 years before the divorce. Ryan arriving home late from an out-of-state conference. Emily remembered asking how the trip went. Ryan barely looked up from his phone while answering. Busy. Nothing exciting. At the time she believed him. Now she was not so sure. The realization felt less like a discovery and more like confirmation. A truth she always sensed but never fully allowed herself to see. Her marriage did not end because two people grew apart. It ended because one person quietly left long before the relationship officially ended. Emily sat motionless as evening darkness filled the room. Anger never arrived. Neither did tears. What came instead was clarity. Painful clarity. For months after the divorce she blamed herself. She questioned her worth. Her choices. Her shortcomings. Now, staring at documents spread across her living room floor, she understood something important. Ryan's betrayal began long before he admitted it existed. The failure of the marriage was not hers alone to carry. Her phone vibrated again. Another message. This time from an unfamiliar number. Emily hesitated before opening it. The message contained only a single photograph. Her breath caught instantly. It was a picture of Ryan and Vanessa standing outside the wedding venue. They were smiling, holding hands, preparing for their future together. No text accompanied the image. No explanation. Nothing. Emily stared at the screen. Then she noticed something unusual. The photograph had been sent anonymously. No name. No context. Just the image itself. A cold feeling settled in her chest. Someone wanted her to see this. Someone wanted her attention focused on the wedding. Suddenly the invitation, the note, the text message, and now the photograph no longer felt like separate events. They felt connected, deliberate, planned. Emily slowly placed her phone on the table. For the first time since receiving the invitation, a disturbing possibility entered her mind. Maybe Ryan did not simply want her to attend the wedding. Maybe he wanted something much more specific. And as she looked again at the smiling faces in the photograph, she could not shake the feeling that whatever was coming next had already been set in motion long before the invitation ever reached her door. The anonymous photograph stayed on Emily's mind for days. She tried to convince herself it did not matter. She tried to focus on work, on deadlines, on rebuilding the stable routine she had fought so hard to create after the divorce. Yet every morning she woke up with the same question. Why? Why was Ryan suddenly determined to keep her connected to a wedding she never wanted to attend? And perhaps more importantly, who sent the photograph? By the end of the week, curiosity finally overcame hesitation. Emily decided to do something she had avoided for nearly a year. She searched Vanessa Brooks online. The results appeared instantly. Social media posts, engagement announcements, wedding planning updates, smiling photographs from expensive restaurants and luxury vacations. On the surface, everything looked perfect. Ryan and Vanessa seemed determined to present themselves as a modern success story. A happy couple building an exciting future together. Emily scrolled through dozens of images. Then something unexpected happened. The further she looked, the more inconsistencies she noticed. The smiles looked polished but strained. Certain photographs appeared carefully staged. Comments from friends felt unusually performative. None of it proved anything. Still, the perfection seemed almost too perfect. As if they were trying very hard to convince the world that everything was wonderful. Emily closed her laptop and immediately felt ridiculous. Why was she analyzing strangers' social media pages? Ryan's choices no longer belonged to her. Vanessa was not her problem. Their future was not her responsibility. Yet something inside her refused to let go. That evening Lauren stopped by with takeout and a bottle of sparkling water. One look at Emily's face told her everything. You are thinking about them again. Emily sighed. I know. Then stop. I am trying. Lauren sat across from her at the kitchen table. What is really bothering you? Emily stared down at her untouched food. For a long moment she said nothing. Then the truth finally surfaced. I think I spent the last year believing the divorce happened because I was not enough. Lauren immediately shook her head. No, but what if I did? Emily continued quietly. What if that is why this invitation hurts so much? The room became silent. Lauren reached across the table and gently touched her hand. Emily, listen to me carefully. Someone else's decision to leave does not determine your value. The words landed harder than Emily expected, because deep down she knew her friend was right. The problem was not understanding it logically. The problem was believing it emotionally. Later that night, after Lauren left, Emily found herself revisiting memories she usually avoided. Not the painful ending. The beginning. She remembered meeting Ryan during a business networking event downtown. He was ambitious, energetic, and endlessly optimistic. Back then he made her feel seen, important, chosen. They built dreams together. Shared goals. Shared struggles. Shared victories. For years, Emily genuinely believed they were partners in every sense of the word. Looking back now, she could identify the exact moment things started changing. Success arrived. Ryan's company expanded. New opportunities appeared. New social circles formed. New priorities emerged. Slowly, almost invisibly, Emily moved further and further down his list. First she excused it. Then she accepted it. Eventually she normalized it. The realization hurt because it revealed an uncomfortable truth. Ryan did not destroy the marriage overnight. He abandoned it one small decision at a time. The following Monday, Emily arrived at work earlier than usual. Her office occupied the 12th floor of a modern glass building overlooking the river. The view always helped clear her mind. She settled into her chair and opened her email. Hundreds of messages waited for attention. Most were routine. Then one subject line immediately caught her eye. Wedding guest list confirmation. Her pulse quickened. The message came from the event planning company managing Ryan and Vanessa's wedding. Emily opened it carefully. The email thanked her for confirming attendance and included logistical information for the ceremony. Emily stared at the screen in disbelief. Confirming attendance? She never responded to the invitation. She never contacted anyone. Someone had marked her as attending. Immediately she called the number listed in the email. A cheerful coordinator answered. Good morning. Emily kept her voice calm. I received a confirmation notice for a wedding. There seems to be a mistake. The coordinator reviewed the records. Then her tone shifted slightly. Actually, according to our notes, the groom personally requested your attendance and confirmed your reservation himself. Emily felt her stomach drop. He confirmed it himself? Yes, ma'am. The conversation ended a few minutes later, but Emily remained frozen in her chair long afterward. Ryan had not simply invited her. He was actively ensuring she would be there. The realization changed everything. This was no longer a polite gesture. This was intentional, deliberate, planned. Her phone buzzed moments later. Another text message. Ryan again. 3 simple words appeared on the screen. See you there. Emily stared at the message while a cold feeling settled over her. Because for the first time, she no longer believed this wedding was about celebrating a future. Somehow, in a way she still could not fully understand, it was about her. And as she looked out across the Chicago skyline, she suddenly realized she was no longer asking whether she should attend. She was beginning to wonder what Ryan was hiding. Emily did not attend the wedding. When the day finally arrived, she turned off her phone, drove 2 hours north to a small lakeside town, and spent the afternoon walking along the shoreline beneath a bright summer sky. It was not an act of anger. It was an act of self-preservation. She refused to become a spectator in a story that no longer belonged to her. As waves rolled gently against the rocks, she felt something unexpected. Relief. For months she had dreaded the event, feared it, wondered what it would feel like watching Ryan build a future with someone else. Instead, she sat alone on a wooden bench overlooking the water and realized she did not need answers anymore. She needed distance. That evening, when she finally turned her phone back on, dozens of notifications appeared instantly. Messages from friends, work emails, social media alerts, and one message from Lauren. Call me when you can. Emily immediately dialed. Lauren answered on the first ring. How are you? Honestly. Emily looked out at the fading sunset. Better than I expected. Lauren hesitated. Then I should probably tell you something. Emily felt her stomach tighten slightly. What happened? The wedding was not exactly what everyone expected. Emily said nothing. Lauren continued. Several people from our old social circle were there. Apparently Ryan spent a lot of the reception asking whether anyone had heard from you. Emily frowned. What? He kept asking where you were. The statement made no sense. Ryan was marrying Vanessa. He was celebrating the happiest day of his new life. Why would he spend the evening worrying about whether his ex-wife attended? Lauren sounded equally confused. People noticed it. Apparently he kept checking his phone. Emily stared across the lake. A strange feeling settled over her. Not satisfaction. Not revenge. Confusion. The behavior seemed completely irrational. Maybe someone exaggerated. Maybe, Lauren replied. But there is more. Emily waited. One of Vanessa's bridesmaids told a mutual friend that Vanessa was upset before the ceremony. Upset about what? You. Emily blinked. Me. Apparently she was convinced you would show up. The conversation continued for several minutes, but Emily barely heard the rest. Her thoughts raced in circles. Why would Vanessa care whether she attended? Why would Ryan? None of it added up. They won. They got exactly what they wanted. A marriage. A future. A public celebration. Emily should have been irrelevant by now. Yet somehow she was not. The following weeks brought something she had not experienced in a very long time. Peace. For the first time since the divorce, the constant emotional weight began lifting. She stopped checking old memories. Stopped replaying conversations. Stopped wondering what she could have done differently. The wedding became a line in the sand. A final chapter closing behind her. She threw herself into work with renewed focus. Her consulting projects expanded. Clients requested her specifically. Promotions followed. Opportunities multiplied. The energy she once wasted grieving the past now fueled her future. 1 year later, Emily accepted a leadership role at a rapidly growing healthcare consulting firm in Chicago. The position doubled her income. More importantly, it challenged her in ways she had always wanted. She relocated downtown and rented a modern apartment overlooking the river. Every morning she woke up surrounded by possibility instead of regret. The transformation happened gradually, then all at once. 3 years passed, then 4. Emily became one of the most respected strategic advisors in her industry. Organizations sought her expertise. Conferences invited her to speak. Publications quoted her insights. Her reputation grew because she consistently delivered results. She never chased attention. She chased excellence. Ironically, attention followed anyway. One autumn morning, nearly 5 years after the wedding invitation arrived, Emily stood inside a packed conference center preparing to deliver a keynote presentation. Hundreds of executives filled the auditorium. Industry leaders occupied the front rows. Large screens displayed her name across the stage backdrop. As she adjusted her microphone, she felt remarkably calm. Public speaking once terrified her. Now it felt natural. She walked to center stage and began her presentation. The audience listened carefully. Questions followed. Then applause. Strong. Genuine. Sustained. Emily smiled as she thanked everyone and stepped away from the podium. It was only after leaving the stage that she noticed him, standing near the back of the room. Ryan Mitchell. For a second, she wondered if she imagined it. 5 years had changed both of them. His hair contained more gray. His face looked older. Tired. Yet there was no mistaking him. Ryan stood motionless watching her. Their eyes met briefly across the crowded ballroom. Emily felt surprisingly little. No anger. No heartbreak. No longing. Just recognition. Like seeing someone from another lifetime. Ryan looked stunned. Almost speechless. As if he had expected to find the woman he left behind and instead discovered someone entirely different. Before either could move, a group of executives surrounded Emily to congratulate her on the presentation. When she looked up again several moments later, Ryan was gone. That night she returned home and tried not to think about the encounter. Yet shortly before midnight, her phone buzzed. An unfamiliar number appeared on the screen. Emily hesitated before opening the message. Her pulse immediately quickened. Only one sentence appeared. Emily, we need to talk. Please. Ryan Mitchell. 5 years of silence had ended with 7 simple words. And somehow deep down, Emily already knew this conversation had nothing to do with the past. It had everything to do with something that was about to change both of their lives forever. Emily stared at Ryan's message for nearly 5 minutes before responding. 5 years earlier she would have answered immediately. 5 years earlier she would have worried about his feelings, his needs, his problems. That version of her no longer existed. The woman sitting alone in a luxury apartment overlooking the Chicago River had learned something important. Not every message deserves an instant reply. Not every crisis belongs to you. Eventually she typed 3 words. What do you need? The response arrived almost immediately, as if Ryan had been staring at his phone waiting. Can we meet? Emily frowned. No explanation. No details. Just a request. She almost declined. Every instinct told her reopening communication with Ryan was a mistake. Yet curiosity remained. Something about his appearance at the conference. Something about the desperation hidden inside that message. None of it felt normal. After several moments of consideration, she agreed to meet the following afternoon. The location was a quiet coffee shop downtown. Neutral territory. Public. Safe. The next day, Emily arrived 10 minutes early. She chose a table near the window and ordered tea. Outside, autumn leaves drifted along busy sidewalks while office workers hurried between buildings. Life moved forward as usual. Inside, however, she felt an unexpected tension. Not fear. Anticipation. At exactly 2 o'clock, Ryan walked through the door. Emily immediately noticed how much he had changed. The confident energy she once associated with him seemed diminished. His shoulders looked heavier. His smile appeared forced. Even his posture suggested exhaustion. For a brief moment, she almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Ryan approached carefully. Thank you for coming. Emily nodded politely. You said you needed something. He sat across from her and looked down at his hands. The silence stretched longer than expected. Finally he spoke. You look well. Emily nearly laughed. 5 years of silence and that was his opening line. I am doing well. Ryan nodded. I can see that. More silence followed. Emily remained patient. If he wanted this conversation, he could start it. Eventually he took a slow breath. I owe you an apology. Emily felt nothing. No satisfaction. No anger. Just emptiness. She had imagined those words countless times during the first year after the divorce. Now that they finally arrived, they felt strangely unimportant. For what? She asked calmly. Ryan looked genuinely surprised by the question. For everything. Emily held his gaze. That is a very large category. Ryan lowered his eyes. I know. For the next several minutes he spoke quietly. About mistakes. About regret. About choices he wished he could undo. Emily listened. Without interruption. Not because she needed the apology. Because she wanted to understand why he was really there. Eventually the conversation reached the question she had been waiting to ask. Why now? Ryan stared through the window toward the busy street. Because I should have done it years ago. That is not an answer. He nodded slowly. No. It is not. Another long pause followed. Then Ryan finally revealed part of the truth. Things have not been good. Emily said nothing. My marriage, he clarified. It has been difficult. There it was. The first crack. Emily remembered the perfect wedding photographs. The flawless social media posts. The image of happiness they worked so hard to create. Apparently reality looked different. I am sorry to hear that, she said politely. Ryan laughed softly. Not because anything was funny. Because the response sounded so distant. So professional. The emotional connection he once took for granted was completely gone. Vanessa and I have been struggling for a long time. Emily stirred her tea. Relationships are complicated. Ryan studied her face. Perhaps searching for jealousy, curiosity, vindication. He found none. Emily genuinely did not care. The realization seemed to affect him more than anything else. For years he probably assumed she still thought about him, wondered about him, measured her life against his. The truth was much simpler. She had moved on. Completely. The conversation continued for another hour. Yet despite everything Ryan shared, Emily sensed he was still holding something back. His apology felt real. His regret felt genuine. But neither explained why he suddenly reappeared after 5 years. As the meeting ended, Ryan stood slowly. "Thank you for listening." Emily gathered her things. "You are welcome." He hesitated. "Can we talk again?" That question immediately raised alarms in her mind. "Why?" Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it again. Whatever answer he wanted to give, he stopped himself. "Because there is more I need to tell you." Emily studied him carefully. The exhaustion, the anxiety, the hesitation. Something serious was happening. She could feel it. "Then tell me now." Ryan looked away. "I cannot." The answer made no sense. Yet the fear in his eyes was impossible to miss. For the first time since arriving, Emily felt genuinely unsettled. Ryan was not acting like a man seeking forgiveness. He was acting like a man running out of options. They left the coffee shop separately. Emily walked toward her office while autumn wind swept through the streets. She expected relief after the meeting. Instead, her uneasiness grew stronger. Something remained hidden beneath the surface. Something Ryan was afraid to say. 3 days later, she learned just how serious it was. Shortly after midnight, her phone rang. The sound pulled her from sleep instantly. She reached for the device and squinted at the screen. Ryan Mitchell. At midnight. Her pulse quickened. She answered cautiously. "Ryan." What she heard next sent a chill through her entire body. His voice was shaking. "Emily," he said quietly. "Please. I need your help." Emily sat upright in bed, instantly awake. The digital clock beside her read 12:17 a.m. Ryan's voice sounded strained, almost unrecognizable. Gone was the confidence that once filled every room he entered. What remained was exhaustion, fear, desperation. "What happened?" she asked carefully. On the other end of the line, silence lingered for several seconds. Then Ryan finally spoke. "It is Vanessa." Emily felt her stomach tighten. 5 years ago, hearing that name would have triggered pain. Now it triggered curiosity. What about her? Another pause. "She is going through something serious." Emily waited. "I do not understand." Ryan exhaled slowly. "Neither did I at first." The uncertainty in his voice felt genuine. Emily swung her legs over the side of the bed and walked toward the living room window. Chicago's skyline shimmered beneath the darkness. Thousands of lights glowed across the city. Somewhere among them, Ryan was making this call. "Tell me what is happening." Ryan hesitated. "Not over the phone." Emily closed her eyes. "Ryan, you called me after midnight." "I know." "Then explain." His answer arrived softly. "I need your help." There it was again. The same request. The same desperation. Yet still no explanation. Emily leaned against the glass. "Why me?" For several moments Ryan said nothing. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded heavier than before. "Because you are the only person I know who might be able to help." Emily almost laughed. 5 years earlier he chose another woman. 5 years earlier he built an entirely new life. Yet now somehow she was the person he needed. The irony was impossible to ignore. "I think you should start from the beginning," she said calmly. Ryan agreed to meet the next afternoon. This time there would be no vague conversations and no unfinished explanations. Emily demanded the truth. The following day they met in a quiet private conference room inside Emily's office building. Rain tapped softly against the windows as gray clouds covered the city. Ryan arrived looking even more exhausted than before. Dark circles rested beneath his eyes. His suit appeared wrinkled. His movements seemed slower. For the first time, Emily realized this was not temporary stress. Something had been wearing him down for a long time. After sitting down, Ryan stared at the table for several seconds. Then he finally began. "About 2 years ago, Vanessa started changing." Emily listened silently. Ryan described increasing anxiety, withdrawal from friends, long periods of isolation, emotional exhaustion, difficulty trusting people, difficulty sleeping, difficulty finding joy in things she once loved. The changes happened gradually, then accelerated. "We tried everything," Ryan admitted. "Doctors, specialists, counselors, support groups. Emily noticed how carefully he chose his words. He clearly wanted to protect Vanessa's privacy. She respected that. Did any of it help? Ryan shook his head. Some days were better. Most were not. Emily remained quiet. The story felt sad, human, difficult. Yet it still failed to answer the most important question. Why are you telling me this? Ryan looked directly at her. For the first time since entering the room, he held her gaze. Because recently she told me something. Emily waited. She said she has been carrying guilt for years. The room became very still. Ryan continued carefully. Guilt about you. Emily felt a cold sensation move through her chest. Not anger. Something closer to disbelief. Me. Ryan nodded. She talks about you often. Emily immediately rejected the idea. That does not make sense. I know. We have not spoken in 5 years. I know. Ryan rubbed his forehead wearily. But she never stopped thinking about what happened. Emily looked away toward the rain-covered skyline. For years she imagined Ryan and Vanessa living happily together, without a second thought about the destruction left behind. Apparently reality looked different. Ryan continued speaking. The more time passed, the worse the guilt became. Emily folded her arms. Why are you telling me this now? Ryan's answer came quietly. Because she wants to speak with you. Emily stared at him. Surely she misheard. What? She wants to meet you. For several seconds Emily simply blinked. Nothing about this situation felt real. 5 years earlier Vanessa became the symbol of everything she lost. Now she wanted a conversation. Absolutely not. Ryan seemed unsurprised. Please listen first. No, Emily stood and walked toward the window. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass. Stronger. Older. Wiser. She had spent years rebuilding her life. Why would she willingly reopen old wounds? Behind her, Ryan remained seated. Emily, I understand why you feel that way. Do you? She turned around. Do you really? The question hung between them. Ryan lowered his eyes. Probably not. At least he was honest. Silence filled the room. Finally Emily returned to her chair. Tell me the real reason. Ryan looked confused. What do you mean? You are still leaving something out. She studied his expression carefully. I can see it. For a moment he said nothing. Then his face changed. The carefully controlled composure disappeared. Fear replaced it. Genuine fear. Emily immediately knew her instincts were right. Everything he had shared so far was only part of the story. Ryan took a long breath before speaking again. There is something else. Emily's pulse quickened. What? Ryan swallowed hard. His voice barely rose above a whisper. Vanessa believes there is only one way she will ever find peace. The room fell. Silent. Outside, rain continued sliding down the glass. Inside, Emily felt an unfamiliar sense of dread. Because something in Ryan's eyes told her whatever came next was about to change everything she thought she understood about the past. Ryan's words hung in the air long after he stopped speaking. Emily sat motionless across the conference table, watching rain slide down the windows behind him. What does that mean? She asked quietly. Ryan rubbed both hands together as if searching for the right answer. Vanessa believes she needs to hear something from you. Emily stared at him in disbelief. After 5 years? Yes. And you think that makes sense? Ryan looked exhausted. No. But it matters to her. Emily stood and walked toward the window. The city stretched beneath gray skies. Cars moved through wet streets. People hurried beneath umbrellas. Somewhere out there, life continued normally while her past kept finding ways to return. You are asking a lot, she said. I know. You are asking me to sit down with the woman who helped destroy my marriage. Ryan lowered his head. I know. And somehow I am supposed to help her feel better? The bitterness surprised even Emily. She rarely allowed herself anger anymore. Yet hearing the request spoken aloud reopened old memories. Not because she still loved Ryan. That chapter was over. What hurt was remembering how invisible she felt during the end. How easily she had been replaced. Ryan remained silent. He did not argue. He did not defend himself. For once he simply accepted responsibility. I cannot change what happened, he finally said. Emily turned around. No. You cannot. Another long silence followed. Then Ryan surprised her. I am not asking you because you owe us anything. Emily folded her arms. Then why are you asking? His answer came immediately. Because you are a better person than either of us deserved. The room became still. Emily looked away. 5 years ago hearing those words might have felt satisfying. Now they only felt sad. Sad because they arrived too late. Sad because recognition often comes after consequences. Ryan stood slowly. You do not have to decide today. Emily remained near the window. I am not promising anything. I understand. Before leaving, Ryan reached into his jacket pocket and placed a folded piece of paper on the table. This is from Vanessa. Emily looked at it but did not move. I have not read it, Ryan added. She wanted you to have it. Then he walked away. The door closed quietly behind him. Emily remained alone with the letter. For nearly 10 minutes she ignored it. Eventually curiosity won. She returned to the table and unfolded the paper. The handwriting was neat but uneven, as though written by someone struggling to find the right words. Emily began reading. The letter contained no excuses, no attempts to rewrite history, no effort to justify choices. Instead, it described regret. Vanessa wrote about carrying guilt year after year, about watching Emily's life from a distance, about seeing articles, interviews, and professional achievements that revealed how much Emily had accomplished despite everything. One sentence stopped Emily completely. The strongest person I have ever known is the woman I once believed I defeated. Emily read the line twice. Then a third time. A strange feeling settled over her. Not forgiveness. Not anger. Something more complicated. The letter continued. Vanessa admitted she spent years convincing herself she had won. She married Ryan, built the life she wanted, achieved the future she imagined. Yet over time she realized something uncomfortable. Victory built on someone else's pain never feels secure. Emily folded the letter carefully and placed it back on the table. For a long time she simply sat there, watching rain fall, thinking. That evening she returned home carrying more emotional weight than she expected. She cooked dinner but barely tasted it. She opened a book but could not focus. Eventually she called Lauren. After hearing the entire story, Lauren remained silent for several seconds. What are you thinking? Emily asked. Lauren sighed. Honestly. Always. I think this is not really about Vanessa. Emily frowned. What do you mean? I think this is about you. Emily laughed softly. That does not make any sense. Maybe it does. Lauren's voice softened. For years they occupied space in your story. Maybe now you occupy space in theirs. The observation stayed with Emily long after the call ended. Later that night she sat alone beside the floor-to-ceiling windows of her apartment. City lights reflected against the glass. Somewhere below, traffic flowed through the streets. She thought about the woman she used to be. The woman who cried herself to sleep after the divorce. The woman who questioned her worth. The woman who believed being abandoned meant being unworthy. That version of Emily felt incredibly distant now. She had built a career, a reputation, a life she genuinely loved. Not because Ryan left. Despite it, her phone vibrated shortly after midnight. A new message appeared. This time it was not from Ryan. It was from an unfamiliar number. Emily hesitated before opening it. Her pulse quickened instantly. The message was short. Only one sentence. I know I do not deserve your time, but please let me tell you the truth. There was no signature. None was necessary. Emily already knew exactly who sent it. She stared at the screen while her heart beat steadily inside her chest. 5 years ago she would have deleted the message immediately. Tonight, for the first time, she found herself wondering what truth could possibly remain hidden after all this time. And somewhere deep inside, she realized she was no longer afraid of hearing it. Emily did not respond to the message that night. She placed her phone face down on the kitchen counter and stood quietly beside the window. Below her apartment, Chicago glowed beneath a blanket of city lights. Thousands of strangers moved through their own stories, carrying burdens nobody else could see. 5 years ago, she would have spent hours analyzing every word Vanessa sent. Tonight was different. Tonight she simply breathed. The next morning the message was still there waiting for her. I know I do not deserve your time, but please let me tell you the truth. Emily read it again while drinking coffee. Then she read it a third time. Eventually she typed a response. One conversation. That is all. The reply arrived almost instantly. Thank you. 3 days later Emily found herself entering a quiet private garden, attached to a rehabilitation and wellness center on the north side of the city. Ryan had arranged the meeting but would not be present. Vanessa requested that much. Emily was grateful. If this conversation was going to happen, it needed to happen without him. Autumn leaves covered the stone pathways. A fountain trickled softly in the center of the courtyard. Everything felt peaceful. Almost too peaceful. Emily spotted Vanessa sitting alone on a wooden bench near the garden wall. For a moment neither woman moved. 5 years of history stood silently between them. Vanessa looked different. Older. Thinner. Not physically weak but emotionally worn. The confidence Emily remembered from old photographs had faded. What remained was someone carrying a weight nobody could see. Slowly Emily approached. Vanessa stood immediately. Thank you for coming. Emily nodded politely. You said there was something you wanted to tell me. Vanessa looked down briefly before speaking. There is. They sat on opposite ends of the bench. Several seconds passed. Then a minute. Neither seemed certain how to begin. Finally Vanessa broke the silence. I spent years convincing myself I was the good person in the story. Emily said nothing. That sounds ridiculous now. A small painful smile crossed Vanessa's face. But it is true. The fountain continued flowing quietly nearby. Vanessa clasped her hands together. When Ryan and I got together, I told myself your marriage was already over. Emily listened carefully. I told myself you were both unhappy. That everything would have happened anyway. Her voice trembled slightly. I repeated those lies until I believed them. Emily looked toward the fountain. The words hurt less than she expected. Time had changed that. Distance had changed that. Vanessa continued. Then I watched what happened afterward. What happened afterward? Emily asked. Vanessa's eyes filled with sadness. I watched you disappear. The answer surprised her. What do you mean? Mutual friends talked. People shared updates. I heard about the divorce. I heard how difficult that first year was for you. Vanessa looked away. And I did. Nothing. Silence settled between them. Emily remained calm. She was no longer the woman seeking accountability. She was simply listening. I kept waiting for the guilt to go away, Vanessa admitted. Instead it grew. For the next 20 minutes Vanessa spoke honestly. More honestly than Emily expected. She described years of regret. Years of questioning her own choices. Years of realizing that winning someone else's relationship did not create happiness. Eventually the conversation reached the question Emily never expected to ask. Why now? Vanessa smiled sadly. Because I finally understand something. Emily waited. The person who suffered most was not me. Her voice softened. And it was not Ryan. Vanessa looked directly into Emily's eyes. It was you. For a moment neither woman spoke. Emily felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But understanding. Genuine understanding. Vanessa continued. I thought apologizing would help me feel better. She laughed softly. That was selfish too. Emily found herself asking a question she never imagined would matter. Then why are we here? Vanessa's answer came immediately. Because I wanted you to know the truth. What truth? Vanessa took a slow breath. That none of what happened was because you were not enough. Emily froze. The word struck harder than expected. Vanessa continued quietly. You were not abandoned because you lacked value. You were not replaced because you failed. The problem was never you. Emily looked away quickly. For years she had worked to rebuild her confidence. Yet hearing those words from the one person she least expected affected her deeply. Tears threatened briefly before disappearing. Vanessa noticed but continued. I cannot give you back the years you lost. No, Emily agreed softly. I cannot undo any of it. Another pause followed. But I needed you to hear that. The afternoon sun slipped through the trees overhead. Golden light touched the garden pathways. For the first time since arriving, Emily felt her anger fully loosen its grip. Not because Vanessa deserved forgiveness, not because the past suddenly disappeared, but because Emily realized something important. She no longer needed their apology to heal. She already had. The apology simply confirmed it. As the meeting ended, Vanessa stood slowly. "Thank you for listening." Emily rose as well. "Take care of yourself." Vanessa nodded. Then unexpectedly, tears filled her eyes. "You really became everything they said you did." Emily smiled gently. No, Vanessa looked confused. Emily glanced toward the city skyline visible beyond the garden wall. "I became who I was always supposed to be." As she walked back toward her car, her phone vibrated. A new message appeared from Ryan. Only 3 words. Did she smile? Emily looked back once toward the garden bench where Vanessa still sat beneath the autumn trees. Then she typed a single reply. For the first time. Moments later, Ryan sent one final message. And after reading it, Emily stopped walking altogether. "There is something else you still do not know." Emily stood motionless on the sidewalk, staring at Ryan's final message while autumn wind moved through the city streets around her. "There is something else you still do not know." For several moments she considered ignoring it. After everything that had happened, after the conversation with Vanessa, she finally felt free. Lighter. At peace. Part of her wanted to leave the message unanswered and continue walking toward the future she had built with her own hands. Yet another part knew the story was not completely finished. Not yet. That evening she agreed to meet Ryan one final time. They chose a quiet rooftop restaurant overlooking the Chicago skyline. The city glowed beneath them as the sun slowly disappeared beyond the horizon. Ryan arrived early. Emily could tell immediately that something had changed. He looked calmer than before. Still tired. Still carrying regret. But calmer. When she sat down, neither spoke for a moment. Finally Emily broke the silence. "You said there was something I did not know." Ryan nodded. "There is." He looked out across the city lights before continuing. "After the divorce, I expected you to come back." Emily stared at him. "What?" Ryan laughed softly at himself. "I know how ridiculous that sounds now." Emily remained silent. Ryan shook his head slowly. "I thought you would call. I thought you would fight for us. I thought eventually you would convince me I had made a mistake." The honesty surprised her. Not because it changed anything. Because it revealed how little he understood her back then. "You left," Emily said quietly. "I know. Why would I fight for someone who already chose someone else?" Ryan lowered his eyes. "Because I was selfish." The answer came without hesitation. "I wanted freedom and certainty at the same time." Emily sat back in her chair. The statement explained far more than he probably realized. Ryan continued. "When you disappeared from my life completely, I was angry." Emily almost laughed. "You were angry?" "Yes." He smiled sadly. "Because you moved on." The irony was overwhelming. For years Emily blamed herself for not being enough. Meanwhile Ryan struggled because she refused to remain emotionally available after being abandoned. "Then I started hearing things." He looked directly at her. Promotions. Career success. Speaking engagements. Interviews. Emily remained quiet. "Every year you became stronger." Ryan's voice softened. "And every year I realized what I lost." The city lights reflected against the glass surrounding the rooftop terrace. Somewhere below, traffic moved endlessly through the streets. Emily listened without triumph, without satisfaction. The revelation felt strangely hollow. Regret does not change history. It only proves history mattered. Ryan reached into his jacket and removed a small envelope. He placed it carefully on the table. "What is this?" Emily asked. "Something I should have given you years ago." She opened it slowly. Inside was a handwritten letter. The date immediately caught her attention. It was written nearly 5 years earlier, only weeks after the divorce. Emily looked up. "What is this?" Ryan exhaled deeply. "The first apology I ever wrote." She stared at him. "Then why did I never receive it?" His expression answered before his words did. "Shame. Because I was not brave enough to send it." Silence settled between them. Emily carefully folded the letter without reading it. The contents no longer mattered. The timing did. 5 years ago she desperately wanted answers. 5 years ago she needed closure. Today she did not. That chapter had already ended. Ryan seemed to understand. You do not have to read it. Emily nodded. I probably will not. For the first time that evening he smiled genuinely. That means you really moved on. They sat quietly for a while. Not as former spouses. Not as enemies. Simply as two people acknowledging a shared history. Eventually Ryan spoke one final time. Vanessa told me something after meeting you. Emily looked up. What? She said she finally understood why she could never stop comparing herself to you. Emily frowned slightly. Ryan smiled. Because you never spent your life trying to win. The words lingered between them. You spent it building. Emily looked out across the skyline. The city she once viewed through tears now felt entirely different. Full of possibility. Full of purpose. Full of a future that belonged only to her. Ryan stood first. Thank you for meeting me. Emily rose as well. Take care of yourself. He nodded. Then hesitated. For what it is worth, I am sorry. Emily studied him for a moment. The man standing before her was not the same person who destroyed her heart years ago. Life had changed him. Consequences had changed him. Regret had changed him. But none of that mattered anymore. Because forgiveness and reconciliation are not the same thing. I know, she said gently. Ryan nodded once and walked away. Emily watched him disappear into the evening crowd. Then she turned toward the skyline. A cold breeze moved across the rooftop. Below her, the city lights stretched endlessly into the distance. For years she believed the greatest victory would be proving everyone wrong. Proving Ryan wrong. Proving Vanessa wrong. Proving the world wrong. Standing there now, she finally understood the truth. The greatest victory was never about them. It was about becoming someone who no longer needed their approval. Emily smiled softly and slipped the unopened letter into her purse. Then she walked toward the elevator without looking back. The day Ryan begged for her help was not the day she won. She had already won years earlier. On the day she stopped measuring her worth by the people who failed to see it. And as the elevator doors closed, carrying her toward the life she built herself, one truth remained brighter than every light in the city below. She did not get him back. She got herself back. And that was worth infinitely more.